Welcome, Badass Manifester. I am so glad you are here. I'm your host and head coach, Ashley Gordon, master mindset and manifestation biz expert, founder of the Quantum Coaching certification, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur obsessed with empowering you to create quantum leaps in your energy, your life, and your business. This is the show to help you make magic your everyday normal, where the ripple effect is real and the guest experts are world class. My mission is to power your conscious and subconscious mind with manifestation teachings, business tools, and coaching techniques to put your potential into action. Consider this your weekly up level. Are you ready for quantum transformation? Let's do this. Hello, Badass Manifesting family. Oh my goodness, happy Memorial Day. Happy summer. Happy new season that we are entering into, this transition. I'm so excited for the season to come. And I'm so excited for today's episode. Today is a training about how to help you become a more inclusive coach and really learn what it means to be an ally for the LGBTQIA plus community. And Jenna Teague, who is one of the co-facilitators of the Quantum Coaching Academy, she is leading this training. And it is really impactful because she frames it in a way that helps you understand who your potential LGBTQIA plus client could be and the lens in which they see life and the history in which they've come from. And it's really, really very, very beautiful the way it's put together, and it's very informative. So yeah, just take in what you need from this episode, and I'm really excited about it. And I want to remind you that we have a giveaway happening right now. It's so exciting. So we have an exclusive giveaway for the podcast, for our podcast listeners, specifically in relation to the Big Coach Energy Live training that you are a part of, essentially. So the last, few episodes have been all about Big Coach Energy Live, and this is one of those trainings that you're about to get. And so our giveaway is 3 prizes: $500, $1,000, and $1,500 off of the Quantum Coaching Academy. So if you've been wanting to join, you have to apply, book your call, and you could win. You can win through participating in this podcast giveaway. So here's how to win. You have to register for Big Coach Energy Live in the show notes. You must screenshot the episode and share it on social media and tag me at thequantum.coach. And also, if you're listening to this, you can tag Jenna as well at Jenna Teague. And there's bonus points if you leave a review for the podcast. So it's very easy to get bonus points. You just leave your review for the podcast, as well as if you are doing any of the homework that we have in these trainings, to do your homework and tag us with the homework. So it's very easy to win, and my team is on the hunt. They can see everyone who's tagging. There's a big spreadsheet happening, really tracking everything. So go for it. Why not? $500, $1,000, $1,500 off of QCA. So this will be announced after our 5 weeks is over. Probably on the 6th week, I'll announce the winners, which is so fun. Okay, so without further ado, enjoy today's episode. I'm so excited. Have fun. And I can't wait for you to get to know Jenna a little bit more as well. Hello. Welcome to day 4 of Big Coach Energy Live. This week has been so amazing. The work that you all have put in to become the best possible coach you can be, just in this training alone, has been really amazing, inspiring, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for doing it. We are seeing all the comments, all the takeaways, all the homeworks that are showing up in the Facebook group and on Instagram, and it's just incredible to watch. And we're not done yet. And I just want to acknowledge all the applications that have come through for QCA. We're super, super excited to just get to know you more on our application calls. I'm going to introduce someone really special in just a moment that you'll get to meet. And you might even get to meet her on your application call. So you never know. I'm going to pull up this chat in Facebook, or this video in Facebook, so I can see and welcome you official. But as you're dropping in, let me know how you're feeling today. What's your vibe? Where are you at? What are you feeling? Tell me everything. You've gotten to really see the foundation of the quantum coaching method. You've gotten to learn the foundation to our method, literally just the tip of the iceberg of everything that we teach inside of QCA. And that alone has been super transformational for you. And then we got to meet our coaches, our students, our past students who have really gone through their own transformation and have shared their heart with you, their confessions with you, where they were before QCA, where they are now, how they feel in their abilities to lead others and take people to the next level in their lives. And yesterday we got to learn the 5 biggest mistakes to avoid in your coaching, and NLP, right? Neuro-linguistic programming, what it is, how to use it. You got to learn the communication model, which is super impactful to know. And you got to learn all the details about QCA. Well, a lot of the details about QCA and the structure of the program. And I know there was a lot of questions that came up. And so if you haven't yet gotten your questions answered, 2 things I want to share with you. One, we will be hosting a Q&A session on Tuesday night. So Tuesday night, it's an open Zoom call for you to come and get all of your Quantum Coaching Academy questions answered, to learn even more about the structure of the program, how it works, when we do all the things that we do inside of QCA, the commitment, everything. So that's happening on Tuesday evening, and there's an event in this Facebook group to invite you to that. And we're also going to be sending an email. So look out for that. And number 2, what else was I going to say? I can't remember. Anywho, we've done a lot over the last 3 days, and today is going to be so amazing for you. I'm so excited to introduce Jenna Teague. She is so incredible. Let me share you on the screen. Hi.
Hi.
So happy.
So excited to be here.
Yay. And so in QCA, you don't just get me as your facilitator, you also get this unicorn right here with her fabulous new hair. I'm obsessed. So Jenna is a psychotherapist. She has been a coach and a therapist for many, many years, and she is the director of education at Quantum Coaching Academy. And she is really, truly so masterful at her craft, facilitation, coaching, and really being such a trauma-informed lens in the work that we do inside of QCA. So a lot of questions come up around trauma and scope of practice and, all of that. And she is just right there supporting you every single step of the way through the process of really learning your craft and mastering it. Not only that, she's a mentor coach in QCA. So she is mentoring students that are mostly in the West Coast time zone, but you never know. Sometimes it's other time zones. And yeah, you're basically getting her as someone who's going to give you feedback on your coaching. So you coach your mentors and then they give you feedback. And she's one of those amazing mentors that we have. And yeah, she has a lot of amazing qualities. I'm going to let her talk about herself now. You want to introduce yourself? Anything you want to share about you?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on day 4. I think this is the 3rd time we're doing this for for BCE Live, which is so exciting. Basically, I have been with QCA before QCA existed. Ash and I have been working together for many years. We helped birth QCA together, and it is an honor to be part of that and to see that seed of an idea that you had, Ash, now transform into, what is this, our 7th cohort that we're welcoming in right now?
That's insane.
It's wild. It's so exciting. So I'm just so excited to be here. So excited to be talking about our topic today. So excited to answer questions about QCA and meet all of the people who have been spending this week with you on our admissions calls, if I'm
Yeah.
lucky enough to meet some of them.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm so excited you're here. Everyone's super pumped for today. Everyone's commenting on your hair, how amazing it is. Ashley Teagan says our last names are so similar. Green
I
says cool
know.
hair, Jenna. Love the green. Hi, Jenna. Oh, Ashley also loves your podcast. Jenna has a podcast called Middle Finger
Oh,
to Perfection. So check that out. Ashley has done her
yeah.
homework. I like it.
Yes.
Ah, so good. Good morning, Ambre. How are you? Okay, cool. Super excited. All right, let's share the slides and
Okay.
just kick it off.
All
All right,
right.
so day 4, how to step into your big coach energy today. It's all about learning how to shift your language, your marketing, and step into greater inclusivity and allyship as a coach so you can invite the full diversity of clients into your practice. Who is excited for today? Drop it in the comments. Let us know. Yeah.
Yes. I know I'm excited for today.
I know. Jenna's going to crush it. Okay, just a reminder of our giveaway. We've got lots of prizes to give away, and that will be happening probably, I want to say, I have to decide because I like to let people catch up on the trainings because I know that not everyone can watch it live. So either Friday evening or Saturday, we're going to announce the giveaway. So you have lots of time
Cool.
to interact, do your homework, catch up if you're behind, and share, do all the things. And then you can win.
That's right. And you know what I just want to point out?
Yeah.
If you win one of these prizes, that coupon gets immediately applied to your first payment.
Mm.
So that means that like if you're on the 18-month payment plan, you win the first prize, you're literally joining QCA for $83 for the first month.
Literally 80. Oh my God, that's such a good point. Thank you for saying
Yeah,
that.
it's wild. Yeah. So I'm so excited for all of our winners that are going to be announced very soon.
Yeah, your first payment could potentially be $83 if you have the longest payment plan that we offer. So consider
Yes.
that. Thank you, Jenna.
You're welcome. Speaking of
And just a
money,
what speaking of money, yeah, speaking of it, I actually did this money magnet meditation yesterday, and I'm like, damn, this is so good. This meditation
it
is
really
really,
is.
really good. It really is. So make sure you get your hands on these this bundle. It's $11 and tomorrow is the last day to get it. So quantumcoachco.com/money after tomorrow. That link will not be active anymore. So make sure you get your $11 money bundle because why not? It'll enhance this training even more. All right. Okay, well, I'll have to introduce you again. Meet your trainer, Jenna Teague. She's a business strategist, queer identified psychotherapist, and professional co-creator. This is all very true. The past 15 plus years, she spent helping clients dream bigger, execute their big visions. Hello. From a thriving private therapy practice to partnership with coaching industry leaders to achieve their first wildly successful launches. Jenna's been with the Quantum Coach Co. since before QCA was created, as she said, and currently serves as our president and director of operations and education. And she's
Yes.
amazing. Everyone loves Jenna, loves Jenna.
This picture is clearly back in the day before the blue hair existed.
Oh my God, I think we
Just
need a new
looking at,
headshot from today.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
So let's just talk briefly about, well, not briefly, but touch on what our DEI commitments are in QCA, right? Our diversity, equity, and inclusion commitment. We are here to equip you with the tools to maximize your impact, your inclusivity, and income, and become a proactive ally by raising your awareness of your biases and building your knowledge to make your coaching practice more welcoming to all. That's something we really pride ourselves on. It's something we're always working towards. And through our powerful DEI seminars that we have inside of QCA, We strive to be on the leading edge of training inclusive and affirming coaches who will create a ripple effect of inclusive and affirming coaching spaces. So this is ever
Yes.
evolving and always important to us.
Yes. We are constantly growing in this area, and we really invite all of our students to grow in this area as well with us. So, this training is something that exists fully inside QCA. So, you're going to get an amazing preview of our So You Want to Be an Ally training today. And let's go over what our training objectives are for today. So, here at BC Live, we want to share with you why we created this training, why it matters to us, why building an inclusive coaching practice is important. We are here to embody QCA's commitment to continuous inclusivity, growth, and expansion. And this training here today is just one example of the allyship and DEI trainings within QCA. We also have an incredible DEI foundations training, which is based around working with other marginalized communities. We have trainings around the historical and cultural origins of the modalities we teach, and many other trainings around this topic. So know that this is just the tip of the iceberg, what we're touching today. And when you take this training inside of QCA, because I'm just holding the vision that everyone who's here will be taking this training inside QCA, you will get the full scope of how to raise awareness within the coaching community among the QCA students as coaches of our blind spots and our biases regarding the LGBTQI plus community. And you will be equipped with the knowledge, language, and actionable steps to make your spaces more inclusive. And we will help you step into leadership as proactive allies. And you're going to get a taste of that today. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is the framing of this training is about your LGBTQI plus client. So as we go through this training, I want you to think about your client, your current client, if you have one, your future client who's a member of the LGBTQI plus community. And I want you to think about this as the context in which they exist, in which they've grown up, in which they live. And so we're starting out with a little historical context. I want to put a note out there first that being a culturally competent coach for the LGBTQI plus community is not about knowing everything. I mean, I do not know everything. I am a member of the LGBTQI plus community, and I'm constantly growing. So there is no expectation of perfection anywhere in this. It's really about being willing to admit what we don't know, ask questions in a curious and respectful way, educate ourselves, and take action based on the things that we learn. So when we learn how to be more inclusive and affirming, then we take those actions to become more inclusive and affirming. And as always, you will hear this in QCA all the time. Curiosity is a miracle drug. So we're going to lead with curiosity always. Curiosity is the cornerstone of coaching. So we lean on that and we don't make assumptions when it comes to working with other populations or in general about our clients. So this timeline, as you can see, starts all the way back in 1624. And we're just going to go over some sort of seminal moments across this timeline for the LGBTQI plus community. The reason we've started this timeline all the way back in 1624 is because queer people have been here. Queer and trans people, we've been here. We've been here always. And back in 1624, Richard Cornish, who was a gay man, was hanged for being gay. In 1714, anti-sodomy laws were first passed in this country. In 1949, a ban on gay people serving in the military was first established, followed in 1960 by a military ban on trans people serving. In the 1960s and beyond, people first started to rely on the gay panic defense, which means that at the time that this defense was used more predominantly, you could excuse criminal behavior and violent crimes by saying that you were afraid of a gay person. and it was okay to commit a crime against them because of the fear of their perversion, right? In the 1960s, we started to see a little bit of a groundswell of change, starting with some states repealing their anti-sodomy laws in 1961, followed by the Stonewall riots in 1969. These were really pivotal riots in New York City for gay rights after the Stonewall Inn, a famous bar in New York City at the time, was raided by the police, and many people were arrested for being gay. And the Stonewall riots was actually, they were led by some very, very brave drag queens and trans folks and people of color. And they really started what we know as the modern day Pride movement. So in the 1970s, the first Pride events took place in this country. And I do just want to give the context that this timeline is specific to the US. So I know we probably have a lot of people joining us from all sorts of other places who have all sorts of different timelines in your own local areas. And this is just a timeline here in the States. In 1978, the rainbow flag was created for the first time. In 1979, there was the National Gay and Lesbian March in Washington, which drew thousands and thousands of people in support of gay rights. In 1981, AIDS was first identified by the CDC. And here we'll see a little sort of backlash with the emergence of AIDS. All of the movement that happened through the 60s and 70s toward gay rights kind of takes a step back here in the 80s and 90s. In 1986, Bowers versus Hartwick, a court case in Georgia, affirmed that anti-gay sodomy laws are, or were at the time in the 80s, deemed to be legal. So those started to emerge and be reinforced again. In 1994, Don't Ask, Don't Tell became law, which was President Clinton's policy that gay people could not serve openly in the military. They could serve, but they couldn't talk about their sexuality, about their partners, about anything to do with their gay or trans identity. But at least they couldn't be let go from the military for it. In 1996, the Defense of Marriage Act was passed, which said that marriage is between a man and a woman, and gay people did not have the right to be married. In 1998, there was a hate crime murder against a young man who was 21 at the time named Matthew Shepard, where he was beaten and left for dead in a field in Laramie, Wyoming. And this brought a lot of attention to hate crimes at the time, especially anti-gay and anti-trans hate crimes, and started a groundswell of movement to protect marginalized groups, the LGBTQI plus community, from hate crimes. In 2003, the Supreme Court heard the case of Lawrence versus Texas, which actually stated, in contrast to Bowers versus Hartwick in 1986, that in fact anti-sodomy laws were not legal. So they could not be enforced in any of the states. In 2004, Massachusetts was the first state to pass marriage equality and allow gay people to marry. In 2011, that policy of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, created by President Clinton, was repealed. In 2012, PrEP, which is a drug that prevents the transmission of HIV, was approved by the FDA. In 2013, the Defense of Marriage Act was repealed. And then finally in 2015, in the case of Obergefell versus Hodges in front of the Supreme Court, marriage equality was made the law of the land so that gay people could marry in every state under federal protection. So this is a very brief timeline just to show you that even though it might not be the lived experience of your client, depending on how old they are, this is the context in which your LGBTQI plus client exists. This is the history that they carry with them. This is what previous generations of queer and trans folks have lived through. And it's up to us as coaches to have a sense of what that context is like. So just giving you a little taste of that here today. So how do we come, now that we know this history, now that we know this context, how do we become more inclusive, more affirming, and more empowering as LGBTQI plus allies and coaches? I want to point out that being inclusive is the bare minimum, right? That means that we are including queer and trans folks in our spaces. What we're aiming for here is to take a step beyond that, which is to be affirming of queer and trans folks and empowering of them. That is ultimately what we are shooting for, empowering of them, us, me, all the queer folks out there, all the trans folks out there. So, as we've just done, we've learned about the history, context, and challenges of the LGBTQI plus community. We're going to learn more about that in other ways as we continue. We're going to start the inner work of unlearning misinformation, biases, and generational programming that we all possess. Queer and trans folks included receive this programming. We're going to learn how to embody our allyship in our businesses, in our coaching practices, by using really easy, simple to incorporate affirming language and marketing. We're going to get into that today. So you're going to walk away with tangible ways not only to coach people who are members of the LGBTQI plus community, but how to speak to them, to speak to us in your marketing. So we're going to learn how to create those safe, affirming, and empowering spaces for LGBTQI plus clients while maintaining our curiosity for every person's unique experience and the unique experience of queer and trans folks. Oh, Bella. So you might have seen this on our QCA website. Bella is a graduate and quantum coach. She's also a member of Team QCA. And this is just some words that she shared probably a couple years ago now when she graduated, that the DEI commitments that we make in QCA are so important and make such an impact on our students. And Bella is just one student among many who has expressed the importance of this being part of the program. So check her out on the website. She's amazing. If you join QCA, when you join QCA, you'll absolutely get to know Bella and you will love her.
Someone like me a year ago, and that had this role of wanting to just serve at a higher level and a higher capacity. Like, do the fucking thing that's gonna make the difference, that's gonna make you a better coach, a better human, a better daughter, a better mother, all the things, right? Like, that's what we're here to do. And if we can come from that space of wanting to elevate the frequency of the frickin' world, then QCA is absolutely the certification.
Oh, love her.
I love her so much. Thank you for prompting me to play. Okay. So yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some definitions in language that are just terms for you to be familiar with. These are not things for you to memorize. You don't have to know all these by heart. And knowing these terms and their definitions is going to go a long way to your understanding of the LGBTQI plus community and a long way to you being able to share a common vocabulary with your queer and trans clients. So let's go through these quickly, just have an overview. So I've been using the term queer. This is an umbrella term that usually refers to a spectrum of identities and orientations that are considered outside of the mainstream. Queer can be a catch-all term used to include lots of different people, including those who don't identify as exclusively straight, or folks who have non-binary or gender expansive identities. As you may know, this term in the past was used as a slur. and it has been reclaimed by many parts of the LGBTQI plus community and used as an empowering word now. Lesbian, I'm sure many people are familiar with this term, simply refers to a woman who is emotionally, romantically, or sexually attracted to other women. And it's important to note that women and non-binary people use this term to describe themselves. And the term lesbian was actually first used in 1732 in a book by William King in England to refer to women who love women. So, been around for a long time. Gay is a person, gay as a term, describes a person who is emotionally, romantically, or sexually attracted to members of the same gender. Men, women, and non-binary people use this term. In 1955, the term gay was used specifically to mean same-sex relationships between men. So this has been around for a while as well as a term. Bisexual refers to a person who's emotionally, romantically, or sexually attracted to more than one sex, gender, or gender identity, though not necessarily simultaneously in the same way or to the same degree. And this term can be used interchangeably at times with the term pansexual, which we will go over in just a moment. So this term was first used in 1872 in a German pamphlet. And then in 1967, the Sexual Freedom League was formed in San Francisco in support of bisexual people. Transgender is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity and or expression is different from the cultural expectations based on the sex they were assigned at birth. So being transgender does not imply any specific sexual orientation. Transgender identity has nothing to do with sexuality. So transgender people may identify as straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, any of those ways. And in 1965, the term transgender was used first to mean a person who identifies with a gender other than the one they were assigned at birth. Oh, and I want to point out, I didn't mention this. If you see these hearts here with these different colors, these are the pride flags for these identities. So this is the bisexual pride flag colors, the transgender pride flag colors, and we will see those continuing here. So intersex is a term referring to people who are born with a variety of differences in their sex traits and their reproductive anatomy. There is a wide variety among intersex people, including differences in genitalia, chromosomes, gonads, internal sex organs, hormone production, hormone response, and or secondary sex traits. So this encompasses a wide range of variations. Asexuality is described as the lack of sexual attraction or a desire for other people. And then pansexuality, as we mentioned just a moment ago, describes someone who has the potential for emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction to people of any gender, though not necessarily simultaneously in the same way or to the same degree. And again, this can be used at times interchangeably with the term bisexual. Okay. And now let's talk about gender versus sex. So assigned sex at birth, you might have seen these acronyms, AFAB, AMAB, that means assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth. So the sex assigned at birth, which it currently is always assigned as male or female, is assigned to a child at birth based on the child's external anatomy. And the term non-binary, which we've been mentioning already, it's an adjective describing a person who does not identify exclusively as a man or a woman. So non-binary people may identify as being both a man and a woman, something in between, or as falling completely outside of that binary of male, female. And while many non-binary folks may also identify as transgender, not all non-binary people do. Non-binary can also be used as an umbrella term for encompassing identities, including agender, bigender, genderqueer, or gender fluid. So let's talk about bigender. That is denoting or relating to a person whose sense of personal identity encompasses two genders. So they may feel they are both a man and a woman. That's their identity. This is all based on the gender binary, which is a system in which gender is constructed into two strict categories of male or female. And that's all that exists in the binary. And in this gender binary, gender identity is expected to align with the sex assigned at birth, and gender expressions and roles fit traditional expectations. So gender non-conforming is a term given to people who don't conform to the gender norms that are expected of them. That could mean in the way they present their gender, the way they express it, their behaviors, their preferences, their roles. And gender queer is a similar term describing a person who does not subscribe to conventional gender distinctions, but identifies with neither genders, both, or a combination of male and female genders. I do want to point out the spelling of woman with an X. So this is an alternative spelling of woman or women that was proposed as a way to reclaim the identity of womanhood as inclusive, intersectional, and not defined in relationship to men. There is some controversy around this term in certain communities, whether some people feel it's more inclusive, some people feel it's less inclusive. It's something we should be aware of as human beings and as coaches. And gender presentation, when we talk about gender presentation and expression, we're talking about someone's outward appearance. So their clothing, their body language, their general behavior as characterized under the general gender binary by society. And then I also want to touch on pronouns. As you can see, Ashley and I both have our pronouns in our Zoom names so that you can know what they are. We ask all of our students in QCA to share their pronouns on their applications, in their Zoom names, if they feel comfortable, because it's very important to us to respect each person's identity and to use their proper pronouns. So as you may know, pronouns include she, her, hers, he, him, his, they, them, theirs. And then there are a variety of what we call neo-pronouns, which you can see in this graphic here. There is just such a wide variety of pronouns that people use. And that's why it's always important to ask people their pronouns. Don't assume. Don't assume that someone's pronouns fall within she, her, hers, he, him, his, they, them, theirs. They might fall outside of that within these neo-pronouns. So again, not anything to memorize, just to be aware of and to be curious about. And so now that we have a sense of the historical context of the LGBTQI plus community, some of the language and terms that we would like to be familiar with, let's talk about the experience of LGBTQ plus youth. So these statistics, I believe, are from 2021. And honestly, they sometimes shock me, even though I have seen this slide and shared this presentation many times. So 42% of LGBTQ plus youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the last year. And more than half of those youth were transgender or non-binary. This is in 2021. 75% of LGBTQ youth reported that they had experienced discrimination based on their sexual orientation or gender identity at least once in their lifetime. LGBTQ youth who had access to spaces that affirmed their sexual orientation and gender identity, which is what we're trying to do today, create affirming spaces, reported lower rates of attempting suicide. And yet, only 1 in 3 LGBTQ plus youth found their own home, to be LGBTQ affirming. Along those lines, transgender and non-binary youth who reported having their pronouns respected by all of the people they lived with attempted suicide at half the rate of those who did not have their pronouns respected by anyone with whom they lived. You can see the impact of what can be to us small changes of respecting people's pronouns, the impact that that has on their mental health and their lived experience. It's not a small thing for the people who are looking to have their pronouns respected. LGBTQ youth are at more than double the risk of homelessness compared with their non-LGBTQ peers. And youth who identified as both LGBTQ and Black or multiracial had some of the most elevated rates of homelessness. And so, as a coach, you may be working with youth, right? You may be working with these clients directly. And even if you're not working with people under the age of 18, this is the experience of youth in 2021. Imagine the experience of youth in years before that, when you're working with your adult clients who have lived through even more challenging times as queer and trans folks than what was happening in 2021. So really important to think about the context here. Another thing we just want to orient you to is how queer and trans folks search for representation in the media, in arts, in the world around us. Non-queer and trans folks have the opportunity to see their experiences reflected in movies, in TV, in music, in art all the time. Whereas queer and trans folks don't always have that experience. So when we do, it is extremely important and impactful. And along this timeline, this starts in 1923. This is a pivotal moment when Ma Rainey, who was a bisexual blues singer, first started creating music and making a name for herself, when there were very limited roles for women in the performing arts, especially queer and trans folks. In the 1940s, a man named Billy Tipton was very well known in the jazz scene, and it was revealed after his death in 1989, 50 years later, that Billy was actually a transgender man, and that was never known while he was living. In the 1950s, an R&B duo called Charlie and Ray were out gay men in the 50s, which was very rare. And they created sexually ambiguous music that referenced their own experiences. In the 1970s, as we see, this sort of mirrors the history that we were going through before. The 70s was a time of growth and expansion for the Pride movement, for queer and trans folks. Disco culture was a big part of that. It allowed gender expression and sexuality to expand. And queer artists that you may know to this day, like Elton John, the Indigo Girls, the B-52s, Queen, David Bowie, and Grace Jones all emerged during that decade. 1972 featured the first depiction of a gay dad on TV in a television movie called That Certain Summer. In 1978, there was a song written by Tom Robinson called Glad to Be Gay. This was a big thing. And starting in the 1980s, there was increasing exposure to gender bending and artists who blurred that normative gender binary culture. You might know of the band Frankie Goes to Hollywood that sang that famous song Relax from the 80s. The Pet Shop Boys, Dead or Alive, and Culture Club are just some of the androgynous and non-conforming artists that emerged in the 80s. In 1991, the first gay wedding was broadcast on TV in a show called Rock. In 1993, the movie Philadelphia was the first mainstream Hollywood movie to acknowledge the AIDS crisis, and it won 2 Academy Awards. In 1997, Ellen came out publicly and on her TV show, her sitcom. Will and Grace, the first time around, debuted in 1998. Dawson's Creek aired the first romantic kiss between 2 men in 1999. And in 2000, the seminal show Queer as Folk debuted. And then just from 2000 to present, starting in 2000 to 2010, queer artists were emerging across many, many genres. So Lady Gaga, the Sisters, Tegan and Sarah, Adam Lambert. Many genres started to embrace LGBTQ plus folks. and yet other genres fell short and continue to. For example, Shelley Wright, who is a country artist in the 2010s, dealt with declining sales and death threats after coming out in 2012. So we still have a long way to go. Even now, mainstream music and culture is beginning to reflect the acceptance and solidarity of queer musicians, with artists like Kehlani, Haley Kiyoko, Demi Lovato, King Princess, Halsey, Troye Sivan, Sam Smith, Frank Ocean, and Tyler the Creator, and Janelle Monáe. They're all proof of this recognizable progress in tolerance and acceptance. You see, not affirming and empowering, but tolerating and accepting. However, queer musicians still often face discrimination and are marginalized. So just a little bit of context in the sort of crumbs that queer folks are often vying for, queer and trans folks, in terms of representation over the past several decades. And also to touch on the experience of LGBTQ plus folks as employees, there is a long history of discrimination in employment for queer folks that actually continued up until 2020. And so just a brief overview here, starting in 1950, US Congress actually created a report called Employment of Homosexuals and Other Sex Perverts in Government. So obviously not big fans of queer folks in the 50s. And the report stated that since homosexuality is a mental illness, which we will get into in just a moment, considered a mental illness in 1950, the government felt that homosexuals constituted security risks to the nation and said that the government could not employ homosexual people. In 1953, President Eisenhower banned homosexuals from working in the federal government, stating they were a security risk. And that order stayed in place for 40 years until 1993, when President Clinton and Congress enacted Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which still prevented queer and trans folks from being openly out. In 1974, Elaine Noble became the first openly gay person to be elected at the state level in government. She served in the Massachusetts State House for 2 terms. In 1975, the first federal gay rights bill, which would have prohibited discrimination based on sexual orientation, was introduced in Congress, but the Judiciary Committee never even brought it up for consideration. In 1982, Wisconsin was the very first state to outlaw discrimination based on sexual orientation. And it wasn't until 2020, as you can see here, in a decisive 6-3 vote, that the Supreme Court ruled that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 must be interpreted to protect gay and trans workers from employment discrimination. And before that ruling, just 3 years ago, 30 states did not provide basic civil rights protections, and workers could be fired or discriminated against simply because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. So if you're working with anyone, any queer or trans person who had a job from June 14th of 2020 or before, they have experienced the fear of being discriminated against at work and losing their job simply for their identity. 59% of non-LGBTQ plus employees believe it is, quote, unprofessional to discuss sexual orientation or gender identity in the workplace. And I want to point out here that when these employees refer to it being unprofessional, they mean unprofessional to talk about non-heterosexual orientation and non-binary gender identity. Because heterosexual and cisgender folks talk all the time about their partners and their lives and their identity. But 59% of employees believe it's unprofessional for queer and trans folks to do the same, which is pretty shocking, I think, to me. 46% of LGBTQ plus workers are still closeted at work. And 20% of LGBTQ plus people have experienced discrimination on the basis of sexuality or gender identity when applying for jobs, even now, even in the 2020s. And transgender workers in particular are subject to unique forms of discrimination, including bathroom restrictions, misgendering, use of wrong pronouns, and really inappropriate and invasive questions. And finally, let's get into your LGBTQ plus clients' relationships and family. A couple terms that we want to be familiar with here are monogamy and polyamory. So monogamy simply refers to a relationship in which an individual has only one partner at any given time, whereas polyamory refers to the practice of having multiple romantic and typically sexual relationships with the consent of all people involved. And you may have heard this term ethical non-monogamy that can be used interchangeably with polyamory. Specific to LGBTQ plus parents, prior to 1976, there was no legal protection for LGBTQ plus parents in custody decisions whatsoever. And the District of Columbia became the first jurisdiction to offer this protection in 1976. It wasn't until 1997 that New Jersey became the first state to allow same-sex couples to adopt jointly. And until 2010, so just 13 years ago, non-legal partners and same-sex parents could not visit their partners or their children in the hospital. So this has been within essentially the last decade that we have had protections to visit our partners and our children in the hospital. Let's take a moment to imagine what that would feel like, to not know whether you would be able to see a sick child or loved one, simply because of your LGBTQ plus status. And touching upon this, which we referenced earlier, LGBTQ plus identity and mental health. For a long time, homosexuality was considered a mental illness. Transgender identity was considered a mental illness. Asexuality was considered a mental illness. And conversion therapy, the practice of attempting to convert a gay person into a straight person, was considered a viable and useful practice. So briefly, dating back to 1968, homosexuality was considered a paraphilia, which essentially means a perversion. Obviously, Eisenhower and people in the 50s thought that as well, calling homosexuality a sexual perversion. In the 70s, homosexuality was classified as not a paraphilia, but a sexual orientation disturbance. In the 80s, it was further classified as ego-dystonic homosexuality, which means that the homosexual person was not aligned with their homosexual identity. In the 80s, 87, that was reclassified under a sexual disorder not otherwise specified, so still a disorder in 1987. In 1992, finally, the WHO, the World Health Organization, removed homosexuality as a disorder from its ICD-9 classification, which is the diagnostic classification that all medical professionals use. In 2001, the Surgeon General's report that year stated that, quote, there is no valid scientific evidence that sexual orientation can be changed. So no valid evidence that conversion therapy works. Yet it wasn't until 2007, so 6 years after that report, that the American Psychological Association finally convened a task force to talk about reparative therapy or conversion therapy. And from that task force in 2009, they finally spoke out against conversion therapy. In 2011, it became consensus among all major mental health organizations that sexual orientation is not changeable. In 2013, asexuality was acknowledged as no longer a mental disorder, and gender identity disorder was shifted to gender dysphoria. That refers to people's experience of being a gender other than the sex they were assigned at birth. And so even though that Surgeon General's report came out in 2001 saying that there is no scientific evidence that sexuality can be changed, It took 14 years for the President of the United States, who at that time was President Obama, to actually speak out against the practice of conversion therapy or reparative therapy. Been a very long journey to destigmatize LGBTQ plus identities and to see them as not related to one's mental health, not mental health disorders. I mean, obviously they're related to mental health, but they're not disorders of mental health. So this is just a slide that I think is really impactful to notice. So this refers to the percentage of the adult LGBTQ plus population that is covered by laws relating to conversion therapy. So if you can see here, 48% of the LGBTQI plus population lives in states that ban conversion therapy for minors, which means that 52% of the population lives in states that in which that practice is still legal. Even though all major mental health organizations are against it, President Obama came out against it, it is still legal in 52% of the states, or in states where 52% of the LGBTQ plus population lives. Only 9% of LGBTQ plus folks live in states that partially ban conversion therapy for minors. 11% of folks live in states with a preliminary injunction against conversion therapy. And 32% of LGBTQ plus folks live in states with absolutely no laws banning conversion therapy for minors. So we have a long way to go. LGBTQ plus youth and adults are still at risk of this unsound, unscientific practice that creates an incredible amount of harm. Okay, so I know that we have just taken in a lot of information. We've taken in a lot of dates, a lot of details, a lot of terms for our awareness, not to memorize, just to know, just as a starting point. And what can we do with all of that wonderful knowledge that we're building? How can we make shifts in our marketing and in our coaching to become actively welcoming to queer and trans folks, inclusive, affirming, and empowering to queer and trans people? And it's actually a lot simpler than what you might think. So here are a few powerful shifts that you can start making today in the way that you coach and in the way that you invite people to work with you that will make a huge difference for your queer and trans clients, your queer and trans followers, the people in your audience who are part of the LGBTQI plus community. So one shift that we've done a lot here in QCA is to move away from gender binary language. So talking about only women, only men, to more gender-free language, individuals, people, humans, souls, etc. It's such an easy shift to make. And for the people who are noticing and needing to notice your acceptance of their identity outside the gender binary, this is going to mean so much to them. I know it does to me as someone who identifies as gender expansive. Shifting to more inclusive gender language. Again, there is some discussion around the use of women with an X. Some people resonate with it, some people don't. It is an option out there to move toward more inclusive language for some folks. This is another big one. So shifting away from couples language to partner and relationship language. Not everyone exists in a couple, right? Not every relationship is a couple. We reference that when we're talking about polyamory. So if we talk about partners and relationships, that simple shift allows us to include every single person who's in a relationship that is not a two-person couple. And that means so much to the people who need to hear that. Another option is posting your business values and your allyship statement on your website. Talking about your business values around DEI and allyship in your social media. Like being strong and vocal in what you stand for. Because the people who aren't paying attention to that, who aren't really personally invested in how you serve as an ally for queer and trans folks, they'll just gloss over it. And the people who need to know that you are an ally, it will mean so much to them. It will make the difference in whether they can feel comfortable with you as their coach or not. So specific to your coaching, we're going back to that curiosity piece, right? Always curious, always leading with curiosity. So we never want to assume a person's gender or their pronouns. We don't know. So we just ask. We just ask what their pronouns are, how they identify. We ask for your pronouns on your QCA application. It's very simple. Just ask. We don't assume the gender of a person's partner or their relationship dynamic. So we don't assume that a person is in a relationship with someone of another gender. We don't assume that they're in a monogamous relationship. We just ask. Or we use relationship language and partner language. This is, I think, a really key point that I want to get across, which is heterosexuality is not the default sexuality for human beings. It's one sexuality. If we think of heterosexuality as the default, that means that we're putting the responsibility on our LGBTQ plus clients to come out to us, which can be very anxiety provoking. As someone who's had to come out many times, I've experienced a lot of anxiety around that. And it's not trauma informed. So Ashley referenced, we really do a lot of training around trauma informed coaching in QCA and always operating in a trauma informed lens. That is essential. And so in an effort to be more trauma informed, we don't assume that people are heterosexual or that they fit within the gender binary. And also, this is a really important one. Don't assume that if your client is currently in a relationship with someone of another gender, of the opposite gender, that means they're heterosexual. It doesn't. We don't know their full relationship history. We don't know their identity. And so we don't want to assume. We always want to ask. We want to be curious. So in an effort to not assume, what are the specific assumptions that we really want to avoid as coaches? So asking clients in queer relationships which gender or sexual roles they assume in those relationships, that's a no-no. We don't want to do that. That can be evidence to a queer person that you are not a safe space for them. So you don't want to, we don't want to give them that evidence if it's not the case, right? We don't want to ask invasive questions about how queer partners become parents. That's something that your client can share with you if they like. But we don't want to ask questions just based on our own curiosity or desire to know. That's for the client to share on their own timeline. We don't want to ask our transgender client about their transitions. We don't want to ask about hormones or surgeries. If they want to share that, they will share that if it's relevant to their coaching experience. But we don't want to ask invasive questions about their medical history. And we never want to assume whether our client does or does not face discrimination on the basis of their gender and or sexuality. Sometimes we can assume that people don't face discrimination because of the way they present, and yet we don't know if that's the case. So we're curious and we ask and we listen. So how can you become a proactive ally for the LGBTQI plus community? Well, the most proactive practice you can do is exactly what we're starting to do here today, which is to do the inner work, right? To do the inner work of noticing and unlearning our biases, educating ourselves, getting curious. So one thing you can do is diversify your algorithms. Social media is an amazing tool. It's It's an amazing tool to reach clients, to share information, to educate ourselves, to become aware of experiences unlike our own. And also, it can become an echo chamber that provides constant confirmation bias. So, algorithms on social media are set up to show us what they think we want to see. And sometimes they do that really well. I am target marketed all sorts of things that I literally buy. And also, if your feeds are always full of people who look, think, and believe and behave the way that you do, then social media algorithms can actually shield you from learning new things or empathizing with experiences different from your own. So you want to intentionally consume content and media that provide you with varied perspectives. And so we've listed some here if you want to take a screenshot or take a photo of this. Here are some folks that you can follow to start the process of diversifying your algorithms. So Queer Sex Therapy is a great Instagram account. Queer Aunt Bree is a QCA graduate who helped create this training that you're experiencing today. She is amazing. That's me. If you want to follow me, Jenna Teague. LGBTQ Nation is a great account to follow for LGBTQ plus related news and events. And Alok is an incredible non-binary creator, influencer, incredible human. You can follow them at their Instagram as well. Then we have some TikTok creators, NB Therapist, Just Flynn is Fine, Chris Paul Rainbows, you see here. These are all incredible people to start following to get inside perspectives from members of the LGBTQI plus community about our community and what you need to know. So that's the start. That's one of the next steps that you can take walking away from this training. Thank you so much for your attention, your interest, your engagement, your willingness to become more inclusive, affirming, and empowering coaches for queer and trans folks. We need you. There is a lot of legislation going on in the world right now targeting queer and trans folks, particularly trans people. And our community is in need of all the allies that we can have. And so thank you so much for being here and hopefully being one of our proactive allies.
Thank you so much, Jenna. That was amazing. So informative, so eye-opening. I know that there's a lot to process after really going through this training. I know that every time that I go through this training, I still have a lot to process. And I'm just like, wait, this is making me so mad. I have a lot of feelings come up, and I know that that might be coming up for you. And that's totally normal. And yeah, just awareness, right? Just being aware of what's going on for you, being aware, being curious. Yeah. And just, it's good that it's making you feel, right? Because you're seeing, like, this whole training, what I love about it so much is that it's from the perspective of your client or potential client or future client. And so it's really giving you an inside look at their inner world to be able to understand them on such a deep level that, yeah, even if you don't have it all memorized, you don't have to know it all, but to just have that awareness is, as we talked about yesterday, it's everything, right? Awareness is so key here. So for those of you who stayed for this training and for those of you who watch the replay, thank you so much for watching it and for being part of it. Make sure you leave your comments of your biggest takeaways. And I'm just curious, as you are, still on here, a few of you, what are your biggest takeaways? What do you want to know? What are you getting curious about for yourself? Like, feel free to share. This is a safe space where you can do that if you want to. So thank you, Jenna, so much for leading the way.
Yes. And feel free to DM me or, reach out. I'm here for any questions or thoughts or feedback or feelings. All questions are welcome. All feedback is welcome. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and attention. It's an
Yeah,
honor to be able to share this with you.
definitely is. And wait, can you share your slides one more time?
Oh yeah, of course.
Because we have to share about what is coming tomorrow.
Oh yes. Yes.
Do that applications are open. So if you are ready to apply. So what's really cool too about QCA is that you can watch these trainings now that are inside the portal. So these, the allyship training, the DEI training, and there's business trainings and there's coach trainings. There's so much content that's in our pre-study content. So when you enroll now, you are getting access to all this content that you can start applying to your business right now, that you can start setting up your business with right now. You can start setting up your website, your booking links. You could, whatever you feel called to start with, there's something in there where you can take action now to get the ball rolling. So yes, we start our live calls in July, but until July, you're doing your pre-study and you're getting yourself started. Our Facebook group is already in place. You'll join the group. You'll be in there with Ashley, shout out Ashley, and some other beautiful souls, and really start your training now. So that all starts with you applying quantumcoachco.com/QCA. I will drop it in the chat as well.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Ash. There's so much in there to get started with, whether it's like business related stuff, coaching skills related stuff, like guest expert trainings. I mean, yeah, you could be like watching and learning every day between now and when our live calls start. Like that's how much stuff is in the portal for you right now.
Yeah. Oh my God. I missed so many comments on here. I was like behind on the comments. So good. Okay. So a question is from Hope. How do you remain calm and still caring? Because I'm deep breathing and shaking.
Yeah. That's a great question, Hope. You don't always have to remain calm. Sometimes it can be really affirming to know that that the person sitting across from us, our coach, feels feels the intensity and the anger on our behalf as well. So you don't always have to remain calm, number one. And number two, I think, that's why we talk about the importance of this inner work. Because if we can take the time to process through our own feelings as human beings and as coaches, and to really work through the anger or the frustration or whatever comes up, the fear around, these issues, then once we get across from that client who's being impacted, we can have that calm within us because we've done the work of processing through the anger, the rage, the fear, the frustration, so that we can be, sort of a vessel for whatever our client is experiencing. Does that make sense?
That's beautifully said. Yeah. She said, oh, good. Good. Okay, great.
Good.
Yeah. And Amber said she would love these slides. And I said that they'll be inside the QCA portal. When are you applying?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely get your application in. We're ready. We're ready to support you. And I know that you're in Hawaii, I believe. So you'll probably get Jenna as your application call.
So excited.
Yes. Okay. So go to the next slide, please.
Yes.
And tomorrow is going to be amazing. We're going to be getting into business coaching with Callie. So tomorrow it's all about how to go from coaching craft to paid coaching clients and how to blow up your coaching business. So tomorrow I'm bringing on Callie, and she is the business coach and mentor inside of QCA. So once a month, we have business mastermind calls inside the program to help you get clear on your clients, your messaging, your offers, your positioning, the clarity around your brand, everything that you need to start and to go even deeper in the messaging and the marketing piece of putting yourself out there. And she's amazing. And tomorrow we're going to go deep into that. So it's going to be mind-blowing again. So make sure you show up tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here today. We look forward to all the applications that are coming through. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Any questions before we hop off that you have for Jenna or for me about the program? Any specific questions you have about the program? You could drop them in the chat. We will answer you. But also just a reminder that Tuesday night, we're going to do a live Q&A session on Zoom. So you'll come on Zoom, we'll get to meet you, we'll get to see you face to face, and we'll get to really dive in and answer all the questions and go deep into the structure and whatever of the program, everything you want to know about the program. So yeah, we're just really here to make sure that you're making the most empowered decision for yourself. Okay?
And I am so excited for tomorrow, Ash, because this day 5 has never been seen before.
No,
like no one has ever experienced this training yet.
No, it's going to be incredible. I'm so excited.
Wow. I can't wait to see it.
Me too. Well, thank you, Jenna. Thank you. Let's give Jenna some love in the chat. Thank you so much for being here today, for your time, your energy, your expertise, everything that you've shared. Much love.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. I can't wait. Bye. Woo. We did some work today. Thank you so much for listening. You know I love my BAM fam. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know would love it too, because we live for the ripple effect over here. And how can you best support the show? Make sure you're subscribed, hit the 5 stars, and leave a review on iTunes, and let me know how the podcast has impacted you. I love being part of your real-time journey, so screenshot the episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram at ManifestWithAsh. Now say it with me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my own energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. We don't just talk about it over here, we be about it. Now go get 'em.